welcome to Tripping on Legends. I'm Ella Balzano.
And I am Christopher Balzano.
And welcome back to Tripping on Legends.
You already said our campfire in the crossroads.
Campfire in the crossroads?
Yeah, that's like my new tagline. Camp Roads in the Crossroads.
And this is episode
110.
110, episode 110, and that's what it's called.
It's the song title.
Can't Be Erased?
Can't Be Erased. So, we are on episode 110. I was just doing some cleaning up of
she likes the song too?
I was just doing some cleaning up of the feed of the old episodes, right? Like the direct hitcast feed. And I actually found that there are 162 episodes actually up online. So even though we are on episode 110 here, we actually have more episodes that are online. So if you are liking the show, if you're just finding it today, because I know we're going to hit some sweet spots with different legends that we're talking about, maybe getting some other younger people to maybe sometime hear the show for the first time, go into our archives. You can, of course, subscribe to us on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, except for Spotify, not for any political reasons. And of course, you can listen to us almost every Tuesday night at 8:30 live. We go Facebook Live, so facebook.com/trippingonlegends. We also go through IGTV at Spooky Tripping. And of course, we're on live on midnight.fm,
where it's always midnight.
And we try to bring you stories that are legends that you can go out and explore for yourself, right? I've been doing a lot of live shows lately, or getting into the groove of doing live shows again. And one of the things I always say is, tonight's presentation is a gift to you because I am going to show you something that you can do for yourself. And then I send them out someplace. And I know we've been doing some kind of far away legend trips, kind of planning our tripping summer, if I can get you away from camp for a week, or even if I can ditch you and bring someone else. But normally what we're doing is we are presenting a story or a series of stories that have to do with ghostly legends. And so these are legends that you can go out and you can experience for yourself, and you can get a bit of the background. And of course, they tell about the place where you are getting the legend from, right? A ghost story is as much about the people who tell it as it is about the actual ghost. Tonight's episode is a little bit different. So I know, why do you look so angry? You're like, when do I get to talk? When do I get to talk? I don't know if you know, well, you don't know because you don't have Facebook, because you're not old. But tonight is the 2-year anniversary. Can you actually maybe bring that closer?
Bring it closer?
Yeah.
Just keep
tonight,
going.
I will. I'll pretend like you're not even here.
Oh.
Tonight is the
Like you always do.
the 2-year anniversary of one of my favorite episodes ever. Oh my word. Okay. Yeah. One of my favorite episodes ever that we did. The only episode that ever frightened me.
The 100 Steps Cemetery?
No. Oh no. Good call though. No. It is an episode that you and I did about the Home Haunted. And it was the only episode that we've ever done.
It's been a year?
It's been 2 years.
2 years?
Remember, we were deep in COVID. We were deep in the pandemic and in lockdown when we did that.
That's why it's called.
That's why we had to do that. And then I figured that every year, since we started doing the show, since I started bringing you on and doing it live, we have done an episode like this, right? So 2 years ago, it was the Home Haunted. If you haven't seen that episode, you need to go find it in the archives, because it's essentially urban legends that are around your house, right? So we start with the old man stuff, like of using a Ouija board, light as a feather, stiff as a board, and then we move into the kind of modern times with things like Midnight Man and Charlie, and One Man Hide and Seek, which is where I drew the line. I started saying, this is getting way too freaky. And when we were actually scheduled to do that, because we were doing like one a night, I decided, I didn't chicken out, I decided against it. Then about a year ago, we did our Dylan is Chillin'
Dylan is chilling.
What's that called? What was that called?
Creep. No.
You know what I said? Like Dylan, our Dylan episode.
Dylan. It's chills.
Chills, which was talking of Dylan chillin' Dylan.
Dylan is chilling.
Dylan is chillin', which was talking about kind of this evolution, and it was the new. I referred to him as the new Art Bell, which was kind of controversial. I got some pushback on that, but it was the idea that storytelling, paranormal storytelling, was changing. And now we have tonight's episode, which is inspired by
me.
An amazing, crazy song, right?
I showed this to my dad, and the story behind this.
So I'm gonna
song.
maybe we can tell the background with the song in the background.
Okay.
Alexa, play "Can't Be Erased."
Oh, be quieter.
Wrong one. Alexa, play "Can't Be Erased."
Spain.
Oh, you know why? The one in the garage is playing it. I think I unplugged it when I plugged this in.
Oh, that makes sense.
All right, Alexa,
I'll
stop.
play it on my phone.
Yeah, you can play it on your phone.
Alexa, stop! Didn't work.
We haven't.
Oh my god, that was scary.
We have pretty much an Alexa in every room in the house.
Alexa!
It's all going off right now.
Alexa!
So
Stop! That didn't work.
just go in the room and stop it. So what happened was I love the song that we're gonna play in a second. Go shut off the one in your room and I'll. And it was the idea. It was that line that really the line that really drove me was this. The line that really drove me was this part in the song about
Got it.
the idea that I was not always a monster once I was somebody's muse. The world may be your canvas where you paint on it beware. You can play it while I'm talking. The pen is mightier than the sword. It has no limitations. Don't refrain. This ink will stain it. Nothing can erase us now.
To give a smile, but I won't forget your sins. This is a Bendy and the Ink Machine song, BT Dubs. Can you hold this? Alright.
We can't play too much or else it won't let us on the podcast. It'll delete it.
You want me to skip to the part you're talking about? Let me skip to the part.
All right, and so no, that's fine. Just zone it out. So the idea began with this kind of the idea that we create stories, right? And by creating stories, we put them out into the world. We change them. And so I thought, what we would do is do an episode that was half legend trips that we've done or that we've covered. That because we've covered them, we have shifted the story. Or since we began covering them, they've been shifted by modern storytelling. Maybe us, maybe it's someone else. And then the second part of it would be some of this stuff, some of these things like Bendy and kind of modern, these modern stories where there's some kind of ghost story, there's some kind of urban legend, there's some kind of weird thing, and then a whole bunch of people make art about it. And the art that gets made ends up being its own kind of urban legend. Then we got so deep into kind of talking about what those things might be that the entire show became about that. Because the needle is being moved in the paranormal world and paranormal storytelling and folklore. Not by old men like me, not by people who are the children of scary stories to tell in the dark or who are doing it by campfire. It's being shot into the youth through modern devices, through modern conventions. They're sharing the story, they're creating the story better than we ever did and faster than we ever did, and they're doing it through a whole bunch of different ways. And one of the main things that we're going to talk about tonight, so if you are older like me and you don't have kids, right? Or even if you're in that mid-range, like you're younger than me, but you're not, and you've never heard the term analog horror, this is something that you need to explore. And we're going to kind of give you the cliff notes tonight, and we're going to show you how this, while something new, is not something all that new. It's just a new way to do it. You know, back in the day. Oh yeah, of course.
Analog horror is my favorite type of horror, personally. So if you want to be a cool kid like me, watch analog horror.
That's not an endorsement for analog horror at all.
Yes,
you are not cool.
Yes, it is. I'm super cool.
You are super cool. In some ways, this type of horror, this genre of horror, which is creating urban legends quicker than old fax machines. You know, I remember reading stories about urban legends, and it was like, we call them fax machine fables because that's how people were spreading them. Faster than email, spam hits, all of those things, excuse me. These are spreading and changing and manipulating and controlling and influencing horror at a rate that no one has ever seen before. And these are, in essence, like kind of like the first level of it, are these, we can call them the children of the Blair Witch Project. Right? I mean, the Blair Witch Project is really the first found footage movie that kind of makes you scratch your head. The first internet movie that makes you scratch your head saying, is it real? Is it not real? Telling your friend, you know, only parts of it. And of course, we've done the Blair Witch to death, so I just want to use that as kind of like a springboard. But these are the stories that your kids are sharing with each other. I did a survey. I don't know how many of your friends would you say are familiar with any of the topics that we're going to come
Everyone
talk about
knows
today.
what Five Nights at Freddy's is. Everyone does.
Everyone does.
If you don't,
Five
know,
Nights
you
at
do it.
Freddy's is transcendent on this lane, right? But then once you get past Five Nights at Freddy's, how many of your friends know about the other things that we're going to be talking about tonight? Do you think?
A couple of my friends know Walton Files. I'm sure a couple more of them than know Walton Files know the Backrooms.
The Backrooms is incredibly popular. Right now, that seems to be the big one because my students all knew what the Backrooms were.
Yeah.
All knew what the back. If you don't know what the Backrooms are, we're going to be teaching you in a little bit.
I have barely any friends who would know what Mandela Catalog is. In
Really?
fact, I hadn't heard of it until Joshua told me about it.
Who's Joshua?
In my musical theater class.
Okay.
He told me about it, and he was like, "You like Walton Files? Watch Mandela Catalog." So I don't think
So
anyone would really know what that is.
I think as we're beginning with it, I think it does appeal to a certain demographic of people, right? Like, I think that the analog horror, so we can define analog horror as horror that is presented, stories that are presented in digital format, always digital format, which are made to look old, have a plot that's almost never linear, right? Like it jumps back and forth, seems and presents itself as something that has been found or discovered, and you get little pieces oftentimes in short clips, right? Like you get like a little bit and then you wait weeks and then you get another little clip, and it's not until you have gotten 5 things of it that you can look at it and say a story's starting to develop, right? Although the Walton Files were released in big fragments.
The first Walton Files, I think, was like 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The second one was also. The third one was an hour long.
So the story evolves, and it wasn't until you get in. So I want to take it back a little bit because someone asked me my life story this week, and I was at the Orlando Book Festival, and someone kind of was like, well, how do you get in? How do you get into all this spooky stuff? Is the question they always ask, right? And I always give the story, blah blah blah, this, that, and then I say, and then I left, and there was one thing that brought me back. No, it's fine. Yeah, it's a thing that it does. Black Betty's yawning. It was one thing that brought me back into this, and that was Slender Man. Right? Did you just roll your eyes at me?
Yes.
Oh my word.
so lame.
Why is Slender Man lame?
I think he's so lame.
I think this is an important thing to understand because we are now 13 years out from Slender Man, and this generation know it, but they're kind of beyond it. So if you don't know what Slender Man is, first of all, what are you doing watching this show? Slender Man was an invention of Victor Surge in 2009, and it was part of Creepypasta. And all it was, and this is going to sound familiar when we get into some other things.
Hero Brian?
What?
Is that on your notes?
Stop, please. I don't know what you're looking at, but it was a contest. There was a contest to see, like, create a spooky picture. And this Victor Surge, in making this spooky picture, thought it would be more spooky if it had a backstory to it. This is going to be a theme for some of this stuff tonight. And in creating this, he just kind of talked about how these kids were missing. This person would appear, look at all these weird pictures, and he created the first generation of Slender Man, which is really just an archetype of a boogeyman that has been cycling around for at least 100 years. Like, if you listen to some of our specific Slender Man episodes, you'll see kind of the evolution of it, which of course then peaks at the attempted murder of a friend by two young girls in Wisconsin. And if you're following our social media, you know anytime there's a break in that case, I always push it forward. But it was the idea that this was something that was influencing young girls between the ages of 10 and 13.
Oh.
It was not just an American phenomenon, as it was something that was also happening in China with a person who was like Slender Man. And it really began to scratch my head of, like, why are tweens and early teens and women, girls, being so drawn in by this? And it really started my kind of trek back into this. And so I'm going to kind of use that as a starting point, because Slender Man is the first story that I know of where fan fiction became part of the actual story. So people were making their own Slender Man videos. They were pushing out their own sightings of Slender Man, taking it further. As a matter of fact, the entire idea that you needed to kill somebody and then go into a cabin in the woods to be with Slender Man. You're not into Slender Man at all, right? Like, you don't want to, like, live in a cabin with him in the woods?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, you're really not a cabin in the woods kind of girl anyway. It starts with Slender Man.
More of a crash a car kind of guy.
Have you ever heard of Hero Brian?
Literally, yes!
Is that what you were looking at and you were laughing at?
Yes.
All right, so tell people about Hero Brian. Because it's fun. Okay, so I teach 7th graders. Elle is a 7th grader. I teach 7th graders. Very different demographic. Her 7th grade world is much different than the 7th grade world I teach. And here were these big, tough kids. We had just finished FSA today, and I was just kind of, it was the lull before we switched classes. And I just started asking them about them. And it was like, no one, I started out with, hey, do you guys used to play Minecraft? Knowing that they're kids, right? Like, when you were 10 years old, you probably played Minecraft. No, man, we didn't play Minecraft. We're the street. And then I was like, all right, so none of you guys have heard of Hero Brian? And all of a sudden, they all started talking about it. Boys, girls, these kids who, like I said, present as, like, kind of hardcore. They all knew who Hero Brian was. And now you will too.
Well, that makes me a little overwhelmed because I don't know quite a lot about Hero Brian.
You can just say the basics.
All I know is that he is like this phenomena kind of thing that occurs in Minecraft. And it's like, if you know what Minecraft is, you know who Steve is, like the guy with the blue shirt and the blue pants. He's like the figure of Minecraft. And basically, Hero Brian is just Steve, but with white eyes. But he's like a huge phenomena, and he occurs in Minecraft. And he like wrecks your game, I think.
Yep.
I don't know too much other than that about him. But
He's an urban legend. He doesn't exist.
He's not
There
real.
is no such thing. There is no character. There is no programming. There's nothing in the source material, and I literally mean source, like internet source material or the computer gaming source. that has Herobrine. Can you go get him really quick?
Oh, he's not in my room.
Oh, okay. So, but he's this ghost. He's this urban legend that kids claim they've seen, that he comes in, he ruins your game. So many of the kids that I talked to today had said they run into, no, he was with me once. He kind of becomes an excuse for everything that you do wrong.
Oh,
you know, it's like, no, that was Herobrine. That was Herobrine that did that.
Herobrine did it.
Herobrine did it. And to the point that, the game makers actually put like an actual mod out there of Herobrine.
Yeah, I played that mod.
But the original one was this kind of urban legend where kids who were playing this game claimed to have seen this, and it kind of gained momentum. And there were entire... if you want to know where these kinds of stories are happening, they're not happening in literature books, they're happening on Reddit and subreddits. Everything that we're going to talk about tonight is a product of, it kind of, almost all of them go through a very similar thing. They either go through, they're produced on Spooky Pasta or 4chan.
Oh yeah, that's a bad place.
Okay, which is, I guess, the bad version of creepypasta, or the internet.
It's kind of like the bad version of Reddit.
And then they've taken life of their own on Reddit, which is the more accessible, the more generic, right? So it's kind of, it's begun in the shadows and then it explodes. And that story was so similar that I wanted to start with our news stories with the Backrooms.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
All right, so I had heard the Backrooms because I posted last week. I posted something about the TV show Severance, because in my news feed it was talking about Severance is a retelling, or kind of like goes off of the Backrooms, and I'm like, when I think of the Backrooms, I'm from, I lived in New Hampshire. When I think of the Backroom, I think of the greatest chicken fingers ever in the history of mankind, right? So I'm definitely thinking of the Manchester Backroom, and the Puritan Backroom, that is. We should get some advertising from them, I wish. But that's not what they are at all. So tell us, because what I really want to do here with some of these is I want you to tell me the story as you see it, and then I'll fill it in with some of the background and some of the other stuff.
Okay.
So hit us up with what are, and everything we're going to do tonight, you need to, after you listen to the show, you need to fall into these rabbit holes for yourself to get the full experience. Ella Jane Balzano, what are the Backrooms?
Backrooms, I don't know as much about the Backrooms as I do Freddy'S and Walton Files. But the Backrooms is basically a place you go where you kind of no-clip out of reality, and you end up...
Okay, so we're dealing with old people. So you're totally going to have to tell them... You have to tell them what the term no-clip means.
I don't know how to describe the word no-clip. No-clip basically means, go through. Kind of just, drop out of
So, in video game, especially older video games, when the graphics weren't that good... I know, but it's got to be kind of pointing at whoever's talking. When the graphics weren't that good, you would, approach a wall, and rather than go through an actual door, your character would just seem to magically appear on the other side, and that's called no-clipping. Or you would fall... And rather, because this is really the no-clipping that goes on in the back rooms, you would fall or go down the stairs, and rather than you could have the graphics to show you going down the stairs, you would approach the stairs, and all of a sudden you would be on the bottom of the stairs. You would drop into another world.
Yes, thank you for that wonderful description.
No problem.
But the back rooms are basically, the level. They're basically when you no-clip out of reality. There are these collection of levels. There aren't any... I mean, there might be, a confirmed amount of levels. I think it's, a number that starts with, 1 and a bunch of zeros after it. But I know that, a lot of them... So, basically, there are ways to get different levels, but when you first get into the Backrooms, you are on level 0, which is probably the most famous level of the Backroom, which is basically... It's, a collection of yellow walls. Mm-hmm. And the entire time you're in this... little yellow wall space. It's a maze, and there is this monster and is trying to hunt you, and then the basics of it is that you have to get to another level to try to get out. And there's many known, obviously this isn't really real, but known exits. Like, there are certain ways you can exit, but they're super hard. And there are levels where there are, like, benevolent spirits and malevolent spirits. Malevolent spirits. Like, on level 2, I know it's, like, in the sewers or something, or level 1, rather. But level 2 is on, like, in the sewers, and there is a shadow man, and it chases you around, and if it catches you, you are dead.
And is this a shadow man who is the germ?
The germ?
Potentially the germ?
Oh, no, I think the germ stemmed from the monster in the level 0.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's possible, but yeah. Anyways, obviously there are malevolent spirits, but also benevolent spirits. A certain level of the Backrooms is like a Hello Kitty house, and there will be like a man, a very tall man, standing in the doorway of the bedroom, but it's like he's not there to hurt you. He just wants to watch. He doesn't do anything.
So, very similar to, like, the idea of, like, watchers, shadow men who aren't necessarily, like, we're scared of them because they're not supposed to be there, but they're really just paranormal watchers. Like, they don't seem to interact or... So I would argue that that's not benevolent at all. Benevolent means they're supposed to help you.
Benevolent, what is neutral?
So, I was going to say, so in the scope of this analog horror, things that don't kill you are benevolent. Like, even if they don't help you out. Yeah.
But yeah, there are a bunch of levels. I know that like level like 11 or something is like New York City, like a version of New York City.
So here's the crazy thing, which I don't think Ella knows some of this stuff because these kids, what's the term that's on the wall?
Frustratingly vague.
These things are all frustratingly vague, which in addition to having doing a really good example of explaining my love life. I've been working on that joke all day. I ruined it. Describes the appeal of this stuff as well, right? The idea that these backrooms, you don't know what the hell's going on, right? You don't know where it comes from. It allows you to have it be anywhere. It can be anywhere. And it fits in to some degree with the whole elevator game that we talked about. Go ahead.
Like, there is like a series of analog horror on the internet, or like YouTube, I think it is, called like the Backrooms, and it's basically these guys are like trying to film something, and the guy drops the camera, and then all of a sudden in a second,
no clips.
The man is in the Backrooms, and he has the camera on.
He no clips into the Backrooms.
He no clips into the Backrooms.
So that is where the story goes, because if that hadn't happened, the internet stuff she's talking about, the YouTube stuff, Ella probably wouldn't know it.
I would.
Right? Because, well, you're not on 4chan, right?
Well, I know about the Backrooms before I knew about the actual analog horror series.
Maybe or maybe not.
I wasn't on
so it began like Slender Man. It begins on Creepypasta, and it begins with a photo contest. Did you know this? The original, and as far as I know, and I did my research on this, they do not know who the person is who invented the Backrooms. So that is leading to the mystique that this is actually a real thing, right? Only in folklore can you not know who did something, and that's the reason why it is the way it is, right? That's kind of like the defining characteristic of it.
Yeah,
there was a photo contest to create, to post a disquieting image that that just felt off. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the challenge was make a picture that is disquieting and just feels off. So this anonymous person goes on, they post the first pictures of the Backrooms with a short little story about what it is, right? About how this had happened, and this concept of the carpets were wet. Like, this is how they were originally described. Buzzing lights, so you had that disoriented, like, almost Matrix feel to it. Mm-hmm. And then, like you were saying, that one color of yellow, which doesn't change. It doesn't change. So, you go from room to room to room. And keep in mind, initially, this is a single image, or a series of images, but they didn't have the movement that you have like in the videos, right? And that was in 2019. 2 years later, right? A guy by the name of Kane Parsons, who you know as Kane Pixel, right? He comes on and he makes the first video. He uploads the first video about the Backrooms, and they blow up. So that's January, right? We're in May. We're in May. This is a fairly new legend. This is a legend that is still developing as we speak. There have only been, I believe, 3 episodes of official Kane Pixels stuff. But the whole point of it is the audience extends the story. Because it's frustratingly vague, did I use the right term? There's no information. So not only are you left wanting more, but you create more. So you have this like fan fiction, you have art that's being created. It's huge on things like Tumblr. You have these quick little snippets on TikTok about it, right? But more importantly, you have theories, right? You're left with this kind of, that thing that drives every good conspiracy story. Everything is enough time with no explanation that you can create stuff.
MatPat.
Okay, go ahead. What are you talking about? Talk about it, girl.
MatPat is a very popular YouTube creator, and if you really want to like know about this stuff, his actual YouTube channel is called Game Theory, and it has so many theories. And this guy does like extensive research on every game that he's presenting. And he's kind of known as like the Five Nights at Freddy's king.
We're going to talk about him a lot when we get to the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff.
Because he's done so much research into it. And it's not only that, I've also seen videos about Doki Doki Literature Club, which we're not going to talk about right now, and I've also seen videos about Duck Season, and I've seen videos about the Walton Files.
So it's one of those things where when all you're doing is putting something very simple out there, right? And because there are so many gaps and so many holes, someone like this, or you, or us tonight, can come in and talk about what it might mean, right? And talk about, well, what is it, and little parts of it. There are, like I said, there's an entire subreddit for most of these topics. So if you're a Reddit person, I know that I can't do that because I would never go to sleep. I would just be reading all the time. And I agree with some of the things that are being said in the chat room in that, are these things reflecting kind of what we're scared of? Or are these things actually real and we're kind of getting a glimpse of it, right? Like we're seeing kind of dimensional thing. And are we, more importantly, creating them? Right? Like, is there a back room because we invent it? Right? Like all of these things. Now, obviously, we're getting into Five Nights at Freddy's.
Kind of like think it into existence. Exactly.
You think it into existence, what we call a tulpa. But obviously, Five Nights at Freddy's isn't real, right? Like, and we're not going to create these animatronics, right? We'll talk about the fear factor of that. But some of these other ones, why does my voice keep cracking? I feel like
you're like a teenage boy.
I feel like Peter on the Brady Bunch. Time to change. There's definitely a point where you start to say, are we creating a reality? I always think of with things like this when who's my favorite comic book character? Go.
Batman.
Who else?
Red.
Green Arrow. But who else?
Daredevil.
Okay, who else? The real Doctor Strange. John Constantine.
Oh, oopsies.
And the idea that people who work on John Constantine run into him in real life. Like every person who has done a major run on Constantine has run into John Constantine in real life in some weird way. Right? Like they've almost like invented him. Why do you think, so let's talk about the Backrooms for now. Why do you think the Backrooms are scary? Like what is their appeal to people? Why do people watch videos? I was completely drawn in the other day, right? We started watching them, and all of a sudden it's 2 hours in, and you came out of your room and were like, you're still watching it. Like, what do you think it makes it scary?
I think because,
like, why are we drawn to it?
I think because if you have never like heard of the Backrooms or know like a lot about the Backrooms, you have no idea what the hell is going on. You are with your, like in the video, you're with your friends 1 second, the next second you're in a dirty yellow hallway.
Right, so it's this idea that it could really happen, right? Like, it's realistic enough, too, that it's like, it could be an abandoned mall where it leads to Backrooms. It could be...
I think that is a Backrooms.
It could... Well, see, it's not. See, that's the whole thing. It could be anywhere. Could be your school, right? You're walking down the hall at your school, and then all of a sudden, bloop, like you take a wrong turn, and you're gone, right? You no-clip into this place. There's something called liminal space.
I love liminal spaces!
All right, can you talk about what liminal space is?
No. I love the idea of liminal spaces. I can't explain it, but I love liminal spaces.
Can you try to? Because I don't know what it is. Pretend I don't know.
No, I can't. I don't think I can.
So, a liminal space is a place that goes on forever. A place that looks like it's one thing, but it seems to go on forever. And every time you turn, it's the same thing. And then you turn, and it's the same thing. It's the great riddle about what color is the polar bear, right? Like, when you're in the Arctic and everything's white. It's the same kind of thing, only you're actually contained. You're contained into a room that if you could just figure the way to get out, if you could see some discrepancy, if you could see some difference, you would be able to escape. And isn't that like our life? Isn't that like day after day after day after day? And so there's this kind of like this twisting of our screws, but also it's this idea that we can solve it, right? It's the same reason why people watch true crime, right? Ella's trying to read my shirt. She's reading the comments about my shirt, and she has no idea what my shirt means, which means that I'm not raising her right. But this idea where you go in and you could solve it, and you as a viewer can solve it because you think you're one step ahead of the person that's in it. What do you mean? No.
No, I mean like you think that, but like when you're in that situation, no,
you're not. You wouldn't be, right? There's also this idea. I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of the uncanny valley.
Oh, I love it.
Can you explain that?
Yes, I can explain.
Okay, good. She's going to explain uncanny valley.
Uncanny valley is an effect, kind of like the Mandela effect. I'm just kidding. The uncanny valley effect is basically where something looks so like humanoid or like realistic as a human, but it is slightly off. So the human mind and the eye perceives it as, what are you doing?
I'm doing this. Because the uncanny valley is a drop. Alright, continue on. I'll finish off with what you said.
And the uncanny valley, you just threw me off, dude. I was talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, so like the human brain registers it as humanoid, but it is slightly off. So the human mind registers it as a threat. Something that is different or something that could potentially harm you.
Right.
Because it is so humanoid, but it is off in some way.
So the term itself...
Kind of like an alternate.
Like an alternate, which we'll talk about. So it's kind of like what it is, it's a peak, right? And so we are drawn to things that are realistic. So we'll say, for example, we're watching a movie. And this is really a term, I think, that was invented for, it's either for robotics or for cartoons, but it's used in both. And it's that we like it. The more realistic it looks, the more our eye is drawn to it, and so our like of it goes up. Boop. But then at some point, and I call it the Polar Express factor, right? It's so realistic, and yet not. It's missing something that our love of it, boom, drops. In valleys, it totally goes boom, it drops instantaneously, and the trick is to get it at its highest peak before it drops, because then when it drops, it's not appealing and it's, like you said, threatening.
And that's why people like cartoons or like 2D things so much, because those things aren't real. Like, they may be people, but they're not realistic, and they couldn't be registered by the human mind as like a person.
So no one thinks that Bugs Bunny is going to come after them, but Jim Carrey's Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, when they did it, is so realistic that you can close your eyes and you can see him as being partly there.
Well, now you just...
I just ruined Scrooge for you.
Thanks, man. You're so kind.
No problem. You can read the actual story instead. Open up a book every once in a while.
I was reading this morning.
Were you? So this is the other thing that I love this word. If you are a person who loves like new words, Kenoposia or Kenoposia, which is the eerie, forlorn atmosphere of a place that's usually very busy, but now it's completely quiet.
It's kind of like an
right? And this was the definition that was given. I love this. The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrow. Oh. If you haven't dug into that, if you haven't gone down that rabbit hole, you've got homework.
I do have homework.
You do. So the idea that you go to a place like a shopping mall or a school or an office building, which is what the Backrooms kind of initially pretend to be, except for the fact that where there's activity, where there's things going on, there's nothing. And there's something uberly creepy about that because it should be filled with...
Like, when I'm at school for, like, an event or something, and it's after school, and, like, no one's there, and I'm walking through the halls, it's so creepy.
And it's... We have some people talking about Stephen King in the chat room, but it's also... Stephen King does this thing very well, which is take an ordinary thing and make it not ordinary anymore. And one of the ways to do that is to take a schoolhouse. It's perfectly fine. A school at night is right.
Know.
It's scary, right? Like it's you don't want to be there. Everything that was there during the day is gone, but some of the noises are still there, and your mind starts to fill in the gaps, fill in the holes. So that is something that is very powerful, and maybe the driving force behind the Backrooms. And the thing is that it evolves, right? So this guy, this Kane Pixel, now has everybody like on the edge of their seat. What's going to happen? And one of the things that draws it in is this non-sequential storytelling, right? Which we're old. We like our stories like, it starts with the exposition, and then you pull the trigger, and then the rising action, and stuff like that. And some storytellers will tell you a little bit of the story and then go back, and tell you a little bit of the story and then go back, and you've got this kind of ebb and flow. If you're talking about the end scene of Sometimes They Come Back, it's one of my favorite Stephen King moments. Sometimes They Come Back is my favorite Stephen King story. That end scene at the school, if that's what you're talking about, is amazing. Sorry, distraction to address the chat room. But this... you are always disoriented because you're always trying to figure out where in the story this happens. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so because you are constantly not settled, it allows for that vagueness to be appealing. What is Five Nights at Freddy's?
I've been waiting for this one.
Wow, she's been waiting for this. Literally, she's been waiting for this for 3 weeks. So I'm going to sit back a little bit. But all I want to say, you know what? I'm going to let you do you. I didn't even write notes for this one. I'm going to let you do you. And I'm just going to interject and maybe interview you on certain points. Sound good?
Okay.
All right, go.
Now, I have a memory like a goldfish. So this might not all be true.
That's probably where my filling in is going to come in.
Yeah, so if you want to do more research on this, you can. Look up MatPat. He's got some great stuff on it.
Yeah, there's only about 80,000 references that you can find. Including, I actually have in my bag a Five Nights at Freddy's book.
I have one of my...
that I took off one of my students, so... Alright, go ahead, Al. You take it.
So, Five Nights at Freddy's is basically this game, which is based on a family called the Afton family. And the detail of the Afton family is that...
What I want you guys to notice is how she's not going to talk about the meaning of it. She's literally going to tell you the details of this story. Right? It's the story. No, what I mean by that is it's the story that drives it. So go ahead.
So basically, it's about this family called the Aftons, and what you need to know about the Aftons is there is a father named William Afton, a wife with an unconfirmed name, the youngest son who is Evan Afton, the middle sister, who is Elizabeth Afton, and the oldest brother, who is Michael Afton.
So maybe just do like a summary of it. Like, don't get too deep into, because the mythology of this runs so deep and has taken its own, its life its own. It's now movies. Right, Netflix is doing a new movie about it. Remember I showed it to you? Right, Netflix is doing a show on it, which is funny because it's like 10 years old now. But then also there are books. There are this fan fiction. There's all this stuff. So give like a roundabout thing rather than, because it would be almost impossible to do a summary of it that would like do justice.
This will still be a tiny bit.
That's fine.
Okay, so basically,
it's a compelling story.
William Afton, after a series of things, builds Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria, or Freddy's Pizzeria, and the 4 animatronics that are there are Freddy the bear, I think, Chica the chicken, Bonnie the bunny. I really have to like dig into my mind.
Just say they build animatronics.
They build animatronics, right? William Afton is psychotic. Something is wrong with him, and he kills 5 children. The first being Cassidy, the daughter of not Cassidy. It's Charlotte. Charlotte is the daughter of Henry Emily, his business partner, and Charlotte ends up going into the puppet's body. The puppet is like kind of like the master of this whole thing, and she's the one who guides the other children's spirits to the different animatronics. So
just really quickly, this began as a what?
As a game.
So this began as a PC-based, right? Like not like a PS4 or something like that. Like it's
you can play it on mobile too.
Right, but I mean, it began as like a PC type game, like a role-playing game, and then kind of took off from there. Yeah. So I have to hit the folklore part of it right now, because having worked at Chuck E. Cheese, I can tell you that this taps into this fear we have of like, we bring our kids into this place, we don't know what's behind those masks. Guess what? It's weird teenagers. I was one of those weird teenagers. I used to dress up as Mr. Munch. I was never Chuck E. Cheese. Because I was too fat for Chuck E. Cheese, so they put me in the other one.
I'm ready to share more.
But it's the idea that not only is there something creepy about that, because they're animatronics, and then all of a sudden they're walking around. Like, they're on stage, they're walking around, all this stuff like that. There are rules you have to cover Chucky when he's on the floor, like the animatronic Chucky. But this idea that there's someone inside there. It's moving like this on the stage, but then all of a sudden there's someone inside there. And kind of you take with that the idea, or the very real situation that a lot of these Chuck E. Cheese were either closed or sections were closed because kids were being molested, kids were being abducted from Chuck E. Cheese, and places like Chuck E. Cheese. So it's very easy for something like Five Nights at Freddy's to fill that gap, because we're already scared shitless about it.
So a couple of years before Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria opened, I think there was like Freddy's Diner. It's called something like that. And the 2 animatronics there were Spring Bonnie and Golden Freddy. Question mark. But Golden Freddy is the
one.
There
were 2 animatronics.
There were 2 animatronics. And Evan, the young... So basically, the way that the suits were they had spring locks in them.
This is the weird part of it.
This doesn't make sense to me. And basically what happened was people would actually go in these suits. And what happened with the spring locks was, if they even like had the tiniest amount of moisture, they closed shut. So if someone was inside of them and they were excreting just like a little bit of moisture, the spring locks would lock, and then that person would be killed. So
unlike in the real places where you would have animatronics up on the stage and then just a costume down beneath, these costumes were animatronic themselves, and the people would go in there, they would push aside the mechanisms and step in there, but if something went wrong, they would die. They would get crushed, like all the stuff would close in on them. So why would you build that?
I honestly,
why would you build that unless you're
Ashton
or whatever his name is? What's his name? Ashton?
William Afton.
Afton.
William Afton is psychotic.
Obviously building it intentionally to kill people.
That was the point. They were killing machines. His animatronics were supposed to be killing machines. That's the whole point of Sister Location. Anyways, So Evan, the youngest child of the Afton family, is scared shitless of these animatronics.
You can't swear, you're too young.
Is scared poopless of these animatronics. And then basically the whole thing is that his older brother Evan taunts his brother with like wearing the animatronics masks and
bullying.
They're bullying him. And suddenly, like one day, they drag Evan to like the Golden Freddy's stage and Spring Bonnie's stage, and Evan, who is crying, they put Evan in Golden Freddy's mouth. Now, the way that the spring locks work, spring locks that lock when touched with the tiniest bit of moisture, and a crying kid, Golden Freddy's mouth will poof, and Evan is dead. Evan's gone. So basically, that's why Evan is called the crying child. He's referred to as the crying child. And basically, yeah, Evan's dead now. So, and then a couple years later, he builds...
So what's happening is people are dying from these animatronics, and every time they die, they have to close it down for a little bit. But there seems to be like leftover spirit stuff going on. Like, Evan is still there. Evan ? Because even the name of the kid is unsure. The one girl is stuck in the one.
I will get to that.
I know, but I'm trying to speed up only because like we can't get into all the details of the story.
I'm not going to.
But what we have is a continuous like over years and years and years, which is important because it's one of those things where you can maybe fall for it because it's been 10 years since anyone died at Five Nights at Freddy's or Freddy Funland,
Pizzeria.
Freddy Pizzeria. So we're just going to give it a different name and put it out there, and that's what they keep doing, and so people continuously are falling into this thing. But as we go on, I just want to. What is the word remnants?
No.
The word that I had to introduce to you.
It's yeah, remnant. It's called remnant.
It's remnant. So as she's going on with all of this, what develops is a story that Afton has found a way to that we have. Here's your tulpa right here. That we have essence, and that you can steal someone's essence, and by doing so, you can live forever. Right? And so it goes from being this, oh no, wah wah, kids are dying, to, wait a minute, I can harness this stuff so that I can live forever.
Yeah. So a couple years after Evan's death, William Afton makes animatronics called the Funtime animatronics. The main one was the singer named Circus Baby, which is just like a clown girl. It's not
clowns. So now we're incorporating clowns.
Yeah, and
I just want to hit all the creepy ass.
These animatronics, William Afton designed them to kill. That's the point of them was. And one time, his daughter Elizabeth Afton got a little too close to Circus Baby, and Circus Baby, a claw in her stomach that was built to kill, reached out, grabbed her, and pulled Elizabeth into her, killing her.
So we have this idea that, like, he builds it, he's trying to harness kids' spirits or whatever, and immediately hubris snaps him in the ass, and his own daughter gets killed. Right?
Mm-hmm. And then, kind of like the point of it is, she goes into that, and then Evan goes into Golden Freddy along with another girl, Cassidy, who was a girl that was killed. And she wants to kill everyone. Or she doesn't want to kill everyone, she wants to kill William Afton because she is mad. And so she and Evan are both in Golden Freddy. So basically what happened was Henry Emily...
She could go on for hours.
I could go on for hours. And Henry...
at some point I'm going to cut you off, but go ahead.
Henry Emily designed an animatronic named Lefty, who was designed to like kind of gather all leftover animatronics. I'm totally skipping over Michael, but we don't have time to talk about Michael.
So what we have here is it's a video game, right? Like guess what? Pac-Man, you eat some dots on the screen, right? Like even something like that's advanced like Resident Evil, which is often cited as the origin of a lot of this stuff, or like the inspiration for a lot of it. It's a pretty basic story. Like, what is it? I'm totally dissing the.
Thank you.
I'm totally missing the company that does the Resident Evil. But like they accidentally let something loose, or maybe it's not an accident. They've got it. Like it's one of those things where it's a story itself contained. Five Nights at Freddy's was a video game that essentially was you in a first person, just walking through, trying to find stuff, right? Trying to solve stuff.
No, not really, but you're kind of like a Nightmare.
Well, right, but like, and then it explodes. Five Nights at Freddy's, here's the answer to the trivia question we put out there. Five Nights at Freddy's is the first official use
of the word jump scare.
Of the term jump scare. If you don't know what a jump scare is, then you are not watching
Why
horror
are you
and you
here?
don't have teenagers
Why are you here?
or tweens. But it's like, it obviously is something that has existed forever, right? Forever in terms of like, you're getting like that idea of something that jumps and freaks you out. It's not inherently scary necessarily, but the fact that it comes out of nowhere is, right? And so horror movies obviously have used this for years. They were saying that one of the first like official jump scare was Carrie at the end of Carrie. Spoilers if you haven't seen Carrie. We seem to be having a Stephen King night tonight.
I have not seen Carrie, so don't spoil it.
So I won't spoil it, but it's that the jump scare in Carrie is probably the most famous. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like the godfather of them all. And then since then, obviously, slasher movies and horror movies have made. And I remember watching Poltergeist with kids, and they were like, this movie's really good. There are no jump scares. Like, they were scared, but not jump scares. But the idea that you're searching for something, and all of a sudden something comes out, and it's going to kill you.
Like, one time, I was watching The Conjuring with my friend, and she got scared so bad by the jump scares that she had to go to the bathroom after watching it. And she wanted me to go in before her, just in case there was anything that would jump at her in the bathroom. So when I opened the door, I screamed as loudly as I could. It was pretty funny. And she like hit the ceiling and ran to the other room.
So it is to some degree like a simple kind of thing. Like you're going through, and yet there's this whole mythology that has developed around it, right? Like, and some of it is fan drift, but they're taking and going somewhere else with it. But the large majority of it is created by the creators, right? Like it's generated by the creators. It's reinforced by books and by YouTube videos and things like that. I mean, do you feel have you ever played the game, the actual game? Like, do you feel you need all that other stuff to play it?
No.
So why do you think it's there then? Like, why make all that stuff if you're not going to?
Honestly, I have no idea. I think it's kind of just like, it's this cool thing that we had. It's super popular. Let's make something behind it.
Yeah, and I think it makes it really rich. And once again, then you start wondering, because it does hit. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? Five Nights at Freddy's should not really scare anything. It's the equivalent of like Chuck E. Cheese meets Planet of the Killer Clowns. Like, it's not, or Attack of the Killer Clowns. Like, it's not realistic at all to think you would build these things and they keep opening it and then people die, and then they keep opening it and people die. There's no realism to it whatsoever, right? And then isn't at some part the creator like a zombie walking around?
Michael Afton has the body of Ennard in him, and then one day Ennard gets sick of it and he's just like, I hate this, and then he just goes into the sewer.
And then all of a sudden like zombies are walking around. But then what it is that
he's still alive.
And this once again is not a modern word, but its use is now modern, which is these two phrases: glitch, and this is gonna come in to the other ones as well. The ghost of the machine. Oh. So the term ghost of the machine means that there's something wrong in the programming, right? Or in a larger sense, there's something wrong.
Like Bunny Farm.
In the way that something was built. It's the ghost in the machine. You can't explain it away. You can't necessarily solve it. It's just something, and usually the connotation of it is that it's getting in your way. It's like messing stuff up. These games are taking it to another level, which is they are literally ghosts in the machine, right? Like Hero Brian is an example of this, right? Where there's something wrong inherently in the programming. So there's a total blur of what is the friggin' game and what is the mythology behind it. Because when you are playing Five Nights at Freddy's, all of a sudden that girl starts talking to you.
Which one?
I don't know.
Circus Baby?
Sure. The one that's like you're playing and then she starts talking to you and asking you to help her and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then she ends up being
and all this stuff, and it's like
that's
there's that level of you that's like, it's just a game, it's just a game, it's just a game. But the way that it's interacting with you and the way that it comes out, these kids are so deep into the mythology of it that there's that moment where it's like, is it real? Right? Like, do you believe that it has really happened? And then that gets extended even more when you start talking about our two straight analog horror stories.
Yes! Yes!
Do you think I gave a good definition of what analog horror is?
I think so.
I think what we need to do is we need to come right now. We are coining the phrase analog folklore.
Okay.
No, you got to hit the table when you
Analog.
folklore, dubbing it right here, or analog legend, which is better. Analog folklore, analog legend.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, shoot. This idea that like
Not the Zelda.
exactly, and it happens. Mark Muncy brings up Zelda and creepypasta, Dark Link, in
His name is
creepypasta.
Drown Link.
What is it called?
Drowned Link.
Drown Link.
Drowned Link, I think.
Drown Link.
Something like that.
This idea that they're inserting this for a while. There was Slender Man in Minecraft, right? I used to have the action figure. I don't know where it went. I used to have a little Elder Man. That was Enderman, who's supposed to be Slender Man. They are intentionally building these things in because this is how people interact. Like, sure, there were games that we used to have where you would do something and it would be all of a sudden you came across.
Don't talk about Walton Files.
Okay, I won't. All of a sudden you came across like the wise sage in a cave that you didn't think you were going to. But these are different in the way that they're presented because they're presented as if something has invaded the game. So rather than, Mark, I would love. I'm going to stop for a little bit because Ella has to go do something really quickly before we get into what she's talking about. The two legends I was going to talk about. So I think I'm going to do a live, like a second live on this, because the two other legends that I was going to talk about were for us older folks were this guy, right, and you can see it right here. I'll show it to you. So Mark, I would love to. Maybe you and I should sit down and do this, but
I'm back.
yeah, brother. Wait a minute. I gotta make sure he can see it. Let me see the camera.
Where is
I don't know if you can tell what that says there, but yeah, I was totally gonna talk about Polybius.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Ella was like, "That's stupid. We shouldn't talk about it."
No,
I'm like,
I did not say that. You told
So
me what it was.
we're gonna,
Oh,
you know what?
that's
I'm gonna
cool.
ditch Ella for tripping on legends, and Mark Muncy's gonna come on, and him and I are gonna have
Talk about
a
Polybius?
discussion on that. So, because it's really amazing one. So I'm gonna have to do a different live to hit those two. But why don't you tell us about the next evolution of this, which is
My personal favorite.
which are these films that are coming out, these YouTube videos, and they're primarily YouTube videos, right? Like they're being generally uploaded that way.
Yeah.
That have to do, well, they're analog terror, right? They're analog horror. They are becoming analog folklore, analog legend, which is a way that these kids. You know what? I'm gonna let Ella tell it. Before we'll pretend Deanna's here. We'll pretend Deanna's here, and we're gonna honor the story. So you go. Tell us about the Walton Files.
My personal favorite analog horror series. So, the Walton Files, crazy like Five Nights at Freddy's.
And I was gonna say, like, it is the next evolution of Five Nights at Freddy's. Everything.
Except I don't like when it's compared to Five Nights at Freddy's because it's not really the same thing, but like.
But it's like the son of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Okay, so the point of the Walton Files is about this family, which all have confirmed names, not unlike the Afton family. The dad is Jack Walton, the mom is Rosemary, the older sister is Sophie, she's extremely important. The middle brother is Ed, and the little sister is Molly.
So, just to give some background, it was created by a guy named Martin Walls.
Martin Walls.
And he's, oddly enough, because I was looking at it, because this shit is listed on IMDb. Like, it's that popular that it's not just like some dude with a YouTube channel. These stories are considered art. They're considered film. He's from Chile. Did you know that?
Chile, like the country?
Like the country. Like he's
That's
a
cool.
Chilean artist and da-da-da-da. So continue, go
That's
on.
cool. So the Waltons are basically, the Walton Files are about a man, Jack Walton, and his partner Felix Kranken. Felix Kranken, the whole point of it is that him and Jack Walton are making a store, or like a industry, called Bob's Burgers, I think it is.
So once again, it's this idea of like food service, food industry.
And they have, obviously, different animatronics. And Bon, I say, is the most important one. Then there's also Shaw the sheep. Buzu, I think his name is, the ringmaster guy. And then Banny.
Like a Zuzu.
And then Banny, who is like a bunny. I don't know if she's actually part of it, but she is somewhere in there. Now, so basically, Felix Kranken is going through a very messy divorce with his wife, and he starts... What?
No, I'm just like how deep it is. Go ahead, continue.
He starts drinking a lot of alcohol. Now, one day, Rosemary and Sophie are going to the dentist.
Okay, we're really getting specific with the story, so go ahead.
They cannot...
This one's a little more self-contained.
They cannot... This one is a lot more self-contained. And they cannot take Ed and Molly to their school dance. So, Jack has Felix drive them to their school dance and back from the school dance. However, back from the school dance, Felix is drunk. And May 2nd, actually, yesterday...
May 2nd, so we should have done this yesterday.
1974, Felix Kranken crashes the car with Ed and Molly inside of it, killing them. Ed and Molly have a little rabbit, and his name is Rocket, I think. He's a little gray rabbit. And Felix doesn't want to tell Jack about the fact he just killed his kids. So he buries the kids in the forest nearby. And because these kids are buried with the rabbit, their spirits go into Rocket the rabbit. That's kind of like the last you hear from them.
So the setup of the story is, once again, we're going to have this idea of a family time play place. Now, if Harold Brunvar would go crazy with this shit, right? Talking about the idea of like all of the different things we have when it comes to food legends, right? And this idea that we should be at home, like rather than taking our kids out to Kentucky Fried Chicken, we should be making the chicken at home. And so if you go there and you get a Kentucky Fried Rat, it's your own fault because the place is disgusting. You should be feeding them at home. So you have the same idea of like, should you really be going out to these places where these like things are entertaining your kids, or should you be doing it at home? So what do you have? You have the ultimate example of that, which is a dad doesn't take his kids to the dance. He lets his drunk partner do it. They die, and then they become possessed, and they're like now are gonna rage against the thing that rage. They're gonna rage against the thing that he essentially was prioritizing them behind, right? Which is his restaurant. Spoilers.
And then basically Jack Walton goes into like a crazy rage, and he disappears.
He disappears.
It's not really known what happened to him. It hasn't been like posted. The 4th episode has not been posted, and there's not given us any context as to what it is. But there is a website called findjackwalton.com, I think.
So much like the Blair Witch Project, in addition to the videos that are made, there are fake websites that are out there set up that have fragments that take the story somewhere else, that have news reports, that have fake wanted signs and like missing signs. And so a person who's like scratching their head scratching their head and being like, is this real or is this not real? If they go to extend it and look around, they're going to find all these websites which are built to reinforce the fantasy, but which are not real, right? Which is part of the beauty of it. Tell us about how it's told, because how it's told is really the beauty of it. Like, how do you... No, like, how do you visually see it? Is it, hi, let me tell you this story? Like, no, what is it presented as?
The actual story is not really presented in the first 2 episodes. The first 2 episodes are really just, like, actual horror, and it's kind of like getting the characters.
So you have to, like, to figure out what's going on, you have to stay with it.
In episode 3...
You know what they call that? They call it the Netflix syndrome, where instead of giving you a 2-hour movie, they're going to give you like 12 episodes to get to the same point. Gotta continue.
And in Bunny Farm, which is the game that Sophie Walton... Well, I can't really talk about it unless I talk about the whole thing. But Bunny Farm is where Sophie Walton, who has been taking these, like, memory kind of, like, reducing pills given to her by Felix Kranken, suddenly Bunny Farm, which is a game, like, modeled after Bob's Burgers and the animatronics there, becomes corrupted, and suddenly it starts telling the story of what happened. So that is how.
So again, you have the ghost of the machine screwing things up.
Like it.
But if you watch the Walton Files, it's a freaking headache. Like that's what I'm trying to like get to that part, like how it's told, because if you are
the last episode is not really a headache.
Well, right, but like it's not linear storytelling at all. Instead, how is it told? Because that's where the analog horror part comes in. So what? How is it visually told? Or is it so a part of your life that you don't even realize that that's not how stories are told? Especially for such a literate person, like when you watch it, do you not realize the medium with which you are receiving it? Do you not get like how you're seeing it?
Well, I mean, like it's really the part about the Felix Kranken and like that stuff is actually told. Like it's the audio is played of.
So it's
like
audio clips.
The kids talking to Felix.
So it's fake audio clips, as if there are interviews going on, or else like they caught this little bit of this snippet or found it underneath something, much like Blair Witch.
And basically, it's an audio recording of like the kids talking to Felix, and they're like, "Mr. Felix, you know it's not okay to drink when you're driving," and he's like, "Oh, I just got a little headache," and then he crashes the car. And then there is also a hidden YouTube video on hidden YouTube video on Netflix. Hidden YouTube video, I think it's called like Guilty, and
It's not Guilty, it's something else.
I thought it was Guilty.
It's something like Guilty, but it's not.
Guilty, it's something like that. Guilty is basically an audio recording of Felix Kranken talking right after while he's burying the kids, and he's basically talking about like, oh my god, I can't tell Jack. What am I going to tell Jack?
It's interesting because I was listening today to the latest episode of Paradise After Dark. And they were talking about the murder of Cassie, whatever her name is, which the two of her friends essentially had watched too many horror movies, specifically Scream, and they plotted and killed her. And one of the things that convicted them was that they videotaped it. Right? And so they were having a conversation about how they were going to kill her. Then they had a conversation like, I can't believe we just killed her, man. Like, all this stuff, that idea that we tell our story because we have, like, it's no longer worth just being in our heads or even, like, in a conversation. We're in such an era that we literally have to have social media or some kind of media acknowledge the fact that something happened to have it happen. Right? And so even though I know that is taking place in the 70s, it's the idea that, like, Mister, don't be drinking! I have a tape recorder on! Like that.
Well, obviously that's not what it's like.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that, like, we understand that as a medium that, like, people would do. Like, people would just have tape recorders around taping everything. It is told, right, through... Huh?
It was in the middle.
Okay, finish your story then.
And
I'm sorry.
The whole thing is that, like, after Jack Walton goes missing, then his wife Rosemary goes to find him, and she, like, looks through Bob's Burgers, and then one day she's in Bob's Burgers, and a voice from the back tells her, "Come in here, your husband's in here." When she goes into the back, she doesn't find her husband. She finds Bon, the blue rabbit animatronic.
So this is animatronics too?
Yeah.
Yep.
He kills her. I think this is in one of the first episodes. He kills her, and it's like when Rosemary went to the back, she didn't find her husband. What she found was a rabbit, and then like it shows like a picture of Bon, and his eyes are going back and forth.
It really is.
It's one of the most famous shots of the Walton Files.
You have to experience it because it's not one of those things where you sit down and you're watching it, right? What you seem to be watching is a whole bunch of videos all just kind of strung together in order that someone who found them all thought would be the story, right? So you have instructional videos, like safety videos. of how to work at the
That's-
place, right?
Yeah.
And don't go to this place, and whatever you do, don't go downstairs. And then you have like a video game because you've got to fix the video game, and then something weird happens in the video game, and then all of a sudden everything goes off, and it's just a blinking light for a bit, and it says, "Are you there?" And then it goes off and goes on to another thing, and everything's got this wavy kind of feel to it. Like you could, with a good script, make this yourself. Like we'd actually talked about it one weekend. Like we should make an analog horror because while it's effective. It's effective because it's disorienting, right? And you're squinting, right? Like nothing is scarier than being in the dark and like having to squint because you think something is there, and so you lean forward. It's that kind of horror. Like, do you feel that when you watch it? That idea that like you're visually being manipulated. It's not just the story. Mm-mm. No. So this is the generation that we have. Like this to them makes sense. Like. They will probably could watch things like Memento or Fight Club, and they get it, right? Like the storytelling to them makes total sense because it's a barrage. It's like it attacks your senses, and you don't even realize it. That's not an insult, by the way. You look totally like thwarted.
I was done.
Okay, continue. I know, but like you're the story, and I'm the kind of the meaning of it. Like that's we're going back and forth.
And so basically, he kills Rosemary, and he dismembers her, and he puts her into the Shaw the sheep. I know, like that's kind of like a, oh yeah, she's dead, and she gets dismembered. She gets put in this animatronic.
Wah wah wah.
But she gets put in the Shaw the sheep animatronic, which is brought back later. Which in Bunny Farm, Sophie mentions to her friend Jenny Letterson, who she lives with. A little too. But anyways, she mentions to her friend Jenny Letterson. That Shaw the sheep was her least favorite, and that she thought she didn't look very good or like appealing to the eye. And later in the game, Shaw / Rosemary kind of hacks it, and there's like a jump scare moment where it's like, "Am I beautiful to you, Sophie?" And it's like glitching, and she's like,
That glitch. Once again, that idea of the glitch as art, as storytelling.
And then she's like.
And the interesting thing with this is that those one-liners or those little moments or those like, but now, those like moments that happen in there are what you take, you meaning, tween, you take and you loop into your TikTok videos. You know what I'm saying? Like, so these little moments of them. The reason why, if you're watching it, and you're watching younger kids doing the TikTok, and their clothes are on, you're watching it and you don't get jokes like, I like bananas because they have no bones. If you hear that...
I don't like their peaches. I don't like peaches. I don't like your peaches. They are full of stones. I like bananas because they have no bones.
This is where those things come from, right? They're coming from these little... And even... people who don't know now, the Walton Files was probably the next one that people knew the most, right? It's because they're being and you're listening to Ella, like she can go on and on with the story, but I ask her to talk about the format of it, and it doesn't seem strange to her. But if you were to watch it, you'd be like, wow. Who is on drugs when they made this? Like, and you feel like you're on drugs watching
Martin
it.
Walls.
Like she's. I had to watch it over the course of like 5 viewings because I was like, okay, dude, I can't. It's like the screen's going like that. I couldn't watch it. But this is how they're pulling the stuff up, and this is the art that they're creating, then turning around and creating for themselves. So you have the Walton Files, and then like the next evolution of that is the Mandela Catalog, which obviously the Mandela Catalog is supposed to be an allusion to the Mandela effect.
I personally think Mandela Catalog is one of the scariest things I've ever watched.
Okay, tell them what the...
So, the Mandela Catalog is based in this kind of like alternate world where there are these creatures, and they are called alternates.
So, in this alternate universe, literally the people who you're interacting with are the definition of the uncanny valley, because it's supposed to be the real world, But alternates, you don't know whether an alternate is a real person, whether an alternate is something else.
Like, for example, in I think it's the first episode of the Mandela Catalog, this guy is on the phone with his friend Caesar, and Caesar is talking about, like, my mom got, like, scared at something in our room, can you go, like, fix the video cameras? Caesar talking to, I think his name's, like, John or something?
Mm-hmm.
Caesar talking to John on the phone, the Caesar that was talking to him, was not Caesar. It was an alternate. And basically when Caesar went to when John went to Caesar's house, the alternate followed him home and, like, hunted him down in his house. And then at one point, like, he opens the door. No, his name's like Ben or something like that. No, Mark. His name's Mark. And the alternate, like, opens the door, and the guy's like, "Get the out of here!" And then there's, like, a huge, like, bam, and the screen goes black, and it says, "Uh-oh, bad decision, Mark." And then it shows, like,
yeah, who's the so once again, the narrative is again video clips, which is why we have things like epileptic episodes, like this idea that, like, it's footage, it's clips of old movies that aren't really movies. It's strobe lights. It's things going black, and then you hear the things. So again, you have this kind of mishmash of, like, all these different forms of media thrown at you. The difference, it seems, in the Mandela Catalog is that there's a narrator, like an actual ghost in the machine that sometimes pops up and says things. Is that an alternate, or is it just someone, you know what I'm saying? Like it.
Well, in that specific moment, yes, it is the alternate of Caesar. But the whole thing is that, like, the beginning of it, there is, like, a training, like an alternate training montage.
How to survive alternates,
yeah,
right?
Or how to identify alternates.
So there's your exposition telling us about the world, right?
They show you pictures of, like, people who look the same but look slightly different, like small or abnormalities. And as it progressively goes on, the pictures start to get more distorted, and the pictures start to become creepy. Like, one time there was, like, a guy, and the guy had, like a creepy, like, face like this, and his eyes were like that.
And they'll flash it.
And they will flash it.
They won't. It's not like they'll say, "And now this picture." They'll be like, like that. I'm sorry, the folklorist in me must say, this harkens back to the classic folklore and mythology of the devil himself, where the devil often comes down, whether it's to Georgia or to a dance hall, and interacts with people and tries to steal their soul, except for the fact that the hero...
very good.
He and hot. Whistling hot. Fiddling hot. The protagonist of the story, who we're to learn from, often notices one odd thing about Satan himself, which gives him away, and Satan is forced to go back to hell. Often that thing is an extra limb, or a piece of a wing, or the classic hooven feet. And once the hero of the story sees that, they're able to banish Satan, and he is thwarted. So in the very same way, in this Mandela Catalog, they're just a little bit weird. And then once you see that, you can't unsee it, and you've broken the spell, if you will.
Yeah, and then there's, like, a whole thing in episode 2 about these two guys. I don't remember what their name is, but they get a call from a girl who, there's evidence, like, she's, like, or, like, the guy on the phone says to the girl who is the alternate, he says, like, "How about tonight?" And the alternates can't register, like, things very well, and she said, "How about 3 nights?" The girl thought that he said 2 nights. How is 2 nights? And instead she said, "How is 3 nights?" Which is, like, the thing that gives her away as an alternate. So basically is talking about how her cat is, like, still around and kind of, like, meowing, and she can hear it. Obviously, this girl's an alternate, and then there is...
Obviously
it's really alternate. And then over the course of it, they start to, like, see things. And the guy, at one point, I'm just going to call him Andrew, because I think that sounds very familiar. Andrew, like, tries to, like, go to sleep in this house. and he can hear like an alternate or something on his shoulder going, "Wake up, open your eyes, wake up." Because if he wakes up, the alternate they can kill him. Because like if an alternate is in your house, the thing that it tells you on the safety instruction video is to basically hide, get a gun or something like that, like a weapon, and hide. Just hide. Like,
can you kill
can you kill an alternate?
An alternate? And if you kill an alternate, do you kill the person they're alternating?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
Much is not known about the Mandela Catalog. I mean, like, if you want to do research on it, but based on just the videos, which is kind of what I just know about it, is that like the alternates hunt you down.
And then like you have this story that plays itself out, and then it's very meta.
And
because in the second season,
the first time I heard like the Mark Caesar interaction like on TikTok, I think I almost puked because I was so scared. I make it sound like disthreatening. It's kind of just like a thing, but it is so scary. And once again,
and I think more the way that it's told is the scary part, because you can't. I think of that Office episode where Gabe has like that Korean horror movie or German horror movie where it's like, you don't even have a plot to hold on to. Maybe that's what its commentary is. And it's the idea of like, you can't take comfort in knowing that you can stop for a second because the killer didn't pop out. It was a friend and they're going to have a conversation. Like, there's none of that stoppage, and it's a constant barrage of it, and you don't know what's real. And of course, it's commenting on itself, right? Because none of it's real. Right, so they're all an alternate because it's not real. They're not. It's not a real thing going on, but because of its presentation as being found footage, as being something that you need to get, like we've pieced this together to help you. And then, of course, in the second season, the whole story is of people whose job it is to help people, right? And they fall into it, so it's even commenting on itself.
The guy like dies, I think, is what happened. Like, he gets hunted by the alternate, and then the other guy is driving away, and that's where it ends. But there is a trailer, I think, for episode 3.
So once again, this one's told within like different episodes are told chronologically, right? But within the episode itself, there's that disorientation, so you don't have that comfort of time. This is the way things are going, right? Like, this is, and it's perfectly normal for her, right? She doesn't seem any.
Yes, alternates and doppelgangers.
There's no hesitation in the format of it. What the issue is, I don't think it's an issue. It's just something worth noting and understanding, is that Ella then goes to her friends and they make a story about it and they post it up someplace, right? Or someone takes the monster from the Backrooms and writes a prequel to it. What is that, right? Like, it's a conspiracy theory. There are all these conspiracy theories out there, and none of them are from the people who even create it. It's from other people, but because it's on these platforms where everybody is equal, there is no separation between creator and counterparts, right? Or creator and consumer. I word counterparts there. That's why so it gets blurred, which is part of the joy, but also part of the vagueness, right? The idea that this guy who's posting the videos, what's his name, Kane Pixel, he didn't invent it, but he's like totally driven it someplace else. And these other people are taking Slender Man art and they're mixing it with this, and because you can't find the orientation of it, it's real.
And I think part of like the thing about like analog horror or found footage is that kind of like it feels like it's happening,
Mm-hmm.
Especially with found footage, because I know that with the Mark and the Caesar thing, like the alternate of Caesar is like knocking on Mark's door going, "Mark, I have a surprise for you," and it keeps trying to get him to come outside of his room, and I swear I almost vomited the first time. It was so scary, because it's like, and then he's like, "I have been in my room for days, no one's coming to help me, I can't do anything about it," And then, obviously...
We've talked about before on this show, the thing that scares me most in life are pod people. You know what I'm saying? Like Donald Sutherland at the end of the movie going, no! Like,
that was scary.
There's nothing scarier to me than that. That idea that someone you're supposed to be trusting, the person knocking on the door, like click, click, click. It's not who you think it is, and it's not who you love, right? It's someone completely different, and so you have this.
I'm gonna be scared to go to sleep tonight.
Yeah. So if you're scared to go to sleep tonight, maybe you can listen to some other episodes of ours that are not so scary by going to our archives, wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe and leave a review telling us what we're doing well and what we might need to do for improvements. Or you can follow us on our not so scary and yet creepy and spooky social media platforms. For example, you can go to Instagram, where we're also broadcasting live on Tuesdays. Go to Instagram at Spooky Tripping and follow some of the stuff. And I put a lot of things out there and like kind of little trivia things like we did leading up to this episode. And of course, you can follow us at Facebook at facebook.com/trippingonlegends. And of course, you can go to the website, trippingonlegends.com. I always forget to promote that. And of course, even though it's way over there, Haunted Ocala, I have held it in my hand. I've actually held this book in my hand. I've sold several copies of it. It's not actually it is over there. Not only is Haunted Florida Love Stories out, but Haunted Ocala is going to be out and into the world at the end of May, but definitely the beginning of June. But as I'm hitting all of these different speaking engagements and launch parties that we've got planned for June, bring the book along with me so you can be the first person in your neighborhood to get your copy. And of course, you can follow it also on social media to know what all of those things are. I'm in Leesburg this week. In a few weeks, I'm back in Orlando. We have the Skunk Ape conference that's coming up. You can find the link in the show notes. A lot of things going on. A lot of reasons to follow us. And it's really interesting. I've got a few things, kind of few fun, I'm hoping different things planned for kind of the promotions for the Haunted Ocala. I think this has been a really great episode. I think we probably could have gone like 3 hours.
Of me talking about analog corridor.
Exactly, and me analyzing it as well. I feel like we just scratched the surface. We might have to...
You guys should petition my dad in like 2 Tuesdays. I will be officially 13, but in 2 Tuesdays, you should have my dad do an entire episode where I just talk about Five Nights at Freddy's and the Walton Files lore. Just an entire episode.
Okay, so there you go. We're going to...
It's only that.
All right, so you guys can petition me if you think that Ella should just do an entire summary of those stories, and I'll maybe sit here with puppets or something. I don't know. Let us know. I mean, I've got no problem if the audience wants it and you want to do it. I got no problem with it. Or I think maybe we should do an analog horror where you're trying to tell those stories and something keeps stopping you. Even better. So
analog horror inside analog horror.
However you're going to get in touch with us, however you're going to stay in touch with us.
Oh, you TikTok?
Yeah, I've got TikTok too. Please make sure that you're following us on all of our platforms. Please make sure that you're getting in contact with us. And by us, I mean the show, not us. My name is Christopher Balzano.
My name is Ella Balzano.
And here's hoping that all of your trips
are legendary.
I kind of feel like we should go are legendary, like they do in the analog horror.
Are legendary.